Liar. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Friday. You made it all the way to Friday, July 18th, 2025. Time for another show. Time to wrap it up for the week. Time to head off into the Trump Insanity weekend. And it's already been sort of a Trump Insanity week with the developments in Epstein land, I guess. I mean, he's just, what can I tell you? He's not escaping. He doesn't really apparently know how to escape from it. I'm fine with that. It's fun. More news breaking, I guess, yesterday. I mean, it's hard to really classify what we saw yesterday as news breaking on this, but I mean, kind of news confirmed, knowledge confirmed. I mean, we all really knew what Trump was about. Well, we all knew what Trump was really about with respect to Epstein and how he spent his off time, which was to be on other people, generally speaking. And he and Jeffrey Epstein back in the day were birds of a feather and loved to hang out and talk about how they would take advantage of women and then, in some cases, girls. So, there's that, and I don't think we learned anything more in that respect. But so yesterday's big flap in the Epstein realm was a Wall Street Journal article that is being not only widely circulated, but widely circulated in GIF format. So I think we can actually read it, although I think the Wall Street Journal's paywall has been notorious as the one that will let you view the text of the article once and then never again on the same ISP, I guess. It's been very interesting experiencing that, and I'll see whether this one works. So yeah, it's doing the same thing here today. So yesterday it let us read it, and I knew it was going to do that, and I put the text of the article away, actually in an email just in case. But actually, I think Instapaper, like Pocket, allows for some sort of weird bypassing of the paywall. So I don't know. I'm debating whether, I mean, this is the article that everybody's been talking about in the last 12 hours or so. But if you've seen one of the gift links to it, you've likely gone through it and you probably found the same thing. It's not that much in the way of new information. The new stuff that means everybody can make jokes about it is that whatever her name is, Maxwell, Ghislaine, I don't know however people are pronouncing it these days, but I guess Elaine sort of makes sense. I guess the more I look at it, the more it looks like some sort of ancient French way of spelling the name Elaine, what we came to know it as Elaine, or what we anglicized into Elaine, I guess. Anyway, for Jeffrey Epstein's 50th birthday, she, I guess, I don't know whether she compiled this book, but she probably solicited letters, cards from all of his friends, who were all perverts, generally speaking, because he was a giant pervert, and that's how he made friends, was he allowed other weirdo, but perhaps more restrained or introverted perverts to break out of their shell by raping the girls that he and Elaine would round up for them, and they, forever grateful, would basically give him access to capital, whether it was to put him in control of their wealth management or donate to his foundations that did the things, whatever the F it was, that he did besides rape people that he was interested in, that the public face of Jeffrey Epstein. No one really understands this guy. Anyway, but that's generally speaking the MO for him, and that's how he got rich people interested and kept them interested. And so that's why everybody thinks there might be a client list, and that, well, since no one can really explain his rise as a financial advisor, since he didn't ever apparently make anybody any money, he just took their money. The idea was, well, he would get them interested in this, tempt them in there with the sex gifts, and then blackmail them to keep them contributing. So that's why everybody was so interested in a client list. But I don't know that. Who knows whether it existed? First of all, that it would be kind of dumb to write down, like as they say on The Wire, right, all the notes on a criminal conspiracy. So you don't write that stuff down. But what people are looking for really was his phone directory, I guess, which was already published years ago anyway, but or a lot of it anyhow. And all you're really going to get is people who socialized enough with Jeffrey Epstein that he thought he could call upon them for money or to do them a favor, or to have someone else be forced to do them a favor, a sexual favor. I think you know the story already. But anyway, so Ghislaine Maxwell decided to solicit all of his friends in a different way for his 50th birthday. Everybody write birthday cards to Jeffrey, and I'm going to compile them in a leather-bound volume because that's the way Jeffrey likes people, things, whatever, bound in leather, I guess. Maybe. It depends what day of the week it is. And presented to him as a gift. And it's a nice idea for a normal person. And, for a vicious, rapist, pervert, child molester, well, what you're going to end up getting is a bound volume of birthday cards from people, and you'll be able to measure what kinds of weirdo perverts they are in their private lives by how far they're willing to go in writing in sending a birthday card that will titillate Jeffrey Epstein. And, the answer is probably not that far. They're very, socially conscious people, generally speaking. And Donald Trump wrote one of these cards. And, of course, Donald Trump did it in Donald Trump fashion, over the top and saying more than he should. And he's trying to be poetic in it, as it turns out. And has not the soul of a poet. Let's say that. So apparently he wrote an imaginary dialogue between him and Epstein, which, this is a card from you to Epstein. Like that is kind of an imaginary dialogue. So it's, it's not an expansive thought. But apparently the most creative part of it is that he enclosed, I guess he fit the I think it was typed too. So he must have had somebody else type this, which is ridiculous. But he enclosed the lines, I guess. I haven't seen this card, and I don't know if anybody published a picture of it, but enclosed inside a doodle style drawing of, what do they share in common? A naked woman. Now, that's being polite about it, I guess, because we don't know the age of the imaginary female drawn on this thing. And the discussion is about how much these two guys have in common. And by the way, the description of the doodle that I saw saying, I think in the article, they give it a little bit of a description. And I'll have to read you this part of it, I guess. The age may be ambiguous. And given what we know about Donald Trump's preferences physically, it might not be beyond the pale to suggest that this was drawn to Jeffrey Epstein's tastes. So that's kind of weird. Anyway, the point is that it's not terribly revealing, but it is further evidence that, Donald Trump had a weirdly comfortable relationship, a very close, in fact, relationship with Epstein. I don't know that this card necessarily indicates that, but everything else and the photographic evidence is sufficient, I think, on that front. Justice sends me a note here, by the way, that says that the reason that the letter for Epstein's 50th birthday, although it was probably one of his good friend's 15th birthdays as well, but his 50th birthday, the reason the letter for the bound book sounds like a poor treatment for some Hollywood fluff is that because that was when Trump was trying to break into Hollywood as a producer / showrunner / talent, and Burnett picked him up for The Apprentice the next year. Oh, that's an interesting point. I didn't know he harbored such ambitions. I know he, was sort of a Hollywood, well, I guess he would even tell you a star effer in that sense, and he was hoping other people would be star effers and he would be the star. They got effed and all of this, but he was in Home Alone too, right? And he certainly had designs on being an on-screen celebrity for whatever reason. So that's an interesting insight there. I guess I'll jump to the article here. The headline is Jeffrey Epstein's friends sent him bawdy letters. And it's reviving some, some archaic language with bawdy letters for a 50th birthday album. One was from Donald Trump. Now, it's not surprising that, friendly adults, particularly those who sex trafficked with one another, might send bawdy notes. Although it is interesting, like you can't just let the guy have a happy birthday. Happy birthday, Jeffrey. Have a good one. See you later. But, they all have to be like, hint, hint. You know that I know that you're into sex trafficking, right? Yeah, that's cool. How's it going? I don't know. I guess now I'd be interested in seeing some of the other, if there are other celebrity cards, just to see how far those people go. Anyway, the description runs as follows. It was Jeffrey Epstein's 50th birthday, and blah, 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 Maxwell was preparing a special gift to mark the occasion. And right there, oh no, a special gift to mark the occasion. This could be terrible. But this is maybe the most wholesome gift she ever prepared for him, even though it was fairly pervy. She turned to Epstein's family and friends, and there's where I would like to know, what does his family write? Dear Jeffrey, have a great, they probably have a happy birthday. We love you. Signed, I don't know who, Nana and Papa. Maybe they were still alive, right? I got no idea. Versus, hey, dear cousin Jeffrey, let's go rape some people. Like, I don't know what they're going to write. Even if they know. He's a very distant cousin, so it's okay. / not okay. Anyway, one of the people involved in this thing is Donald Trump. As you know, Maxwell collected letters from Trump and dozens of Epstein's other associates for a 2003 birthday album, according to documents reviewed by the Wall Street Journal. It's like the most humanizing thing about these two. Oh, wouldn't that be nice? Yeah, if he wasn't a rapist, sure. Okay. Pages from the leather-bound album, assembled before Epstein was first arrested in 2006, that's good, are among the documents examined, and this is where this is interesting, and maybe relates a little bit to the firing of Maureen Comey just the other day, right? These are among the documents examined by the Justice Department when they investigated Epstein and Maxwell years ago, according to people who have reviewed the pages. It's unclear if any of the pages are part of the Trump administration's recent review. That is to say, we don't know if this was ever on Pam Bondi's desk or not. But it was in the possession of the Justice Department, and Donald Trump himself is in possession of the Justice Department itself. And so what the F, right? They must have had this. The president's past relationship with Epstein is a sensitive moment, you know why. I'll get down here. The letter bearing Trump's name, which was reviewed by the Journal, is bawdy, like others in the album. It contains several lines of typewritten text. That's unusual for him, I think. Framed by the outline of a naked woman, maybe. I mean, we know it's a naked female, and it appears to be a hand-drawn rendering, drawn with a heavy marker. Now, does anybody know whether Trump, when he writes, when he draws, whatever, does he use a heavy marker? He is well known to use a heavy marker, of course. I don't know whether it's included in this story or not, but the reaction to the story was Trump saying, I don't draw. I've never drawn a picture like that in my life. Well, actually, what he said is, I've never drawn. Well, in his own inimitable way, he said, I don't draw pictures. That's not me. But he said it in a weird and stilted way, as I don't write pictures or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, we'll see it. I'm sure you've stumbled across it by now. And of course, that's a huge lie. And there is a vast array of signed Donald Trump drawings out there, doodles mostly. And this is interesting. Almost all of the drawings that I've seen circulating are of buildings and skylines, which just tells you, how through art Trump broadened his horizons, right? He draws naked women and the buildings that he built or that he wishes he built. And that's the extent of it. So what's going on in Donald Trump's mind? That. I mean, I guess we're lucky he wasn't drawing, pictures of Hitler rallies or something. That came later in life. But it is interesting. Some of the renderings are actually interesting, from a folk art type perspective. He might have been, and in fact, some of these are being circulated on eBay. People are selling them, mostly because Donald Trump drew them. There's nothing spectacular about them, but they're kind of interesting, and some of them are well rendered. And I guess you might say he might have had a career, if he had wanted it, as a pop or folk artist. But I don't know that he wanted it or not. But if he did, then I'm just saying it's weird that these frustrated artists that don't make it that way and instead fall into, megalomaniacal autocrats. I don't think we've had one that worked out. We don't have that many to go by, but they do read one another's books, apparently. Anyway, the president's past relationship with Epstein, being in the news, they traced this thing out. Here's the deal, right? It's a outline of a naked woman, which appears to be hand-drawn in a heavy marker. A pair of small arcs denotes the woman's breasts, or possibly the girl's. We don't know. It's usually, you would think that if Donald Trump was drawing a picture of a naked woman, the arcs would be bigger. Is what I'm saying. But he chose small arcs for Jeffrey, and that may have been a gift to his friend, less than his preference, but you don't know. And that's okay, because that's the end of it. That's the bawdiness. No, there's more. So small arcs denote the woman's breasts, and the future president's signature, and you're familiar with the signature by now, that up and down scrawly stuff. It's a squiggly Donald. I guess he didn't put Trump in this one, but I guess, all right. Can we measure your own artistic imaginative capacity? Donald Trump has to sign it squiggly like that, just Donald. He's drawn the breasts on this outline of a woman. Where does he sign Donald? And how do you write that if you are reporting for the Wall Street Journal? There is an answer to that. The future president's signature is a squiggly Donald below her waist, mimicking pubic hair, which is what I like my name used for when I, am walking about town. All right. So the letter concludes, happy birthday. Oh, this is Donald Trump. Happy birthday. And may every day, he didn't sound quite like this then. May every day be another wonderful secret. That's exceptionally flowery for Donald Trump, and you might say it was poetic license, except every day was a secret. They were just perverted and disgusting secrets. And, so that's basically Donald Trump. Hint, hint, I know you're a pervert. So am I. I approve. Let's be more perverted together again in the future. It's a rough translation. In an interview with the Journal on Tuesday evening, Trump denied writing the letter or drawing the picture. Okay, and here's the weird stilted language. This is not me. This is a fake thing. It's a fake Wall Street Journal story, he said. I never wrote a picture in my life. Well, that's true. I don't draw pictures of women, and that's largely true from the public record. He draws buildings. But Jeffrey Epstein wasn't interested in buildings. It's not my language. It's not my words. Okay, sure. He told the Journal he was preparing to file a lawsuit if it published an article. I'm going to sue the Wall Street Journal just like I sued everyone else, he said. And there's some interesting angle in that, too. This one, I think, I don't know if whether he has the basis to win such a suit under normal circumstances. But, of course, he's got to think that he can win this suit because he certainly has more claim for suing the Wall Street Journal than he had for suing ABC, NBC, CNN, CBS, whatever. But by this point, he thinks he can win any lawsuit, or it doesn't even matter because he I guess knows by now it's not going to trial. It'll be a settlement. And now Rupert Murdoch will have to pay him either going figure, and then with the added insult, I'm sure is probably up. So that's going to be like a $50 million settlement, I would guess. Plus, of course, more legal fees and something, and I want you to build my presidential library. One of those things. But it is interesting that he notes, just like I sued everyone else. He had no basis for suing anyone else, but they are paying you money, so I can't argue with his motivation there. Allegations that Epstein had been sexually abusing girls became public in 2006. He was arrested that year. Epstein died in 2019. You know all about that. And the controversy that death engendered. A bunch of people declined to comment on various things. Let's see. The album had poems, photos, and greetings from business people, academics, Epstein's former girlfriends, and childhood pals, according to the documents reviewed by the Journal and the people familiar with them. It's childhood pals. Happy birthday, Jeffrey. Can't believe you're 50. Remember when we were kids? Of course you do. You're probably raping people who were the age we were when we last saw one another. Have a great day. Signed, Joe, whatever. Anyway, among those who submitted letters were billionaire Leslie Wexner, who was the guy that was mostly suckered into allowing Epstein to manage his finances, which is how he financed his whole operation. Also, of course, attorney Alan Dershowitz, who kept his underwear on the entire time that he wrote this card. The album also contained a letter from the now deceased Harvard economist, one of Epstein, a now deceased Harvard economist. There were several. One of Epstein's report cards from Mark Twain Junior High School in Brooklyn. And a note from a former assistant that included an acrostic with Epstein's name. Jeffrey, oh Jeffrey. This is verse here at this point. Everyone loves you. Fun in the sun. Fun just for fun. Remember, don't forget me soon. Epstein, you rock. You are the best. This is apparently a former assistant who was, between 6 and 8 years old. Epstein was Wexner's money manager at the time. The longtime leader of Victoria's Secret, Wexner was, and so you can see the attraction. Wrote a short message that said, I wanted to get you what you want, so here it is. After the text was a line of a drawing of what appeared to be a woman's breasts. Everybody's drawing the women's breasts for these guys. Wexner declined to comment through a spokesman. Wexner's spokesman previously told the Journal that the retail moguls severed all ties with Epstein in 2007 and never spoke with him again. Sure. Dershowitz's letter included a mock-up of a Vanity Unfair, get it, magazine cover with mock headlines such as, Who was Jack the Ripper? Was it Jeffrey Epstein? Dersh, crack me up. He joked that he had convinced the magazine to change the focus of an article from Epstein to Bill Clinton. Dershowitz, who represented Epstein after his first arrest, said, It's been a long time and I don't recall the content of what I may have written. Okay. The book was put together by a New York City bookbinder, Herbert Weitz, who I'm sure is unhappy about having done that. According to people who were involved in the process, Weitz, who died in 2020, listed Epstein as a client on his website in 2003. Before he was arrested. It isn't clear how the letter with Trump's signature was prepared. Inside the outline of the naked woman was typewritten note styled as an imaginary conversation between Trump and Epstein written in the third person. And it goes like this. He's designated a voiceover for this imaginative thing. And yeah, this is where it begins to make more sense what Justice was saying. He was an aspiring film writer, producer, mogul guy at the time. Voiceover. There must be more to life than having everything, the note began. Okay. And then the conversation begins. Donald. Yes, there is, but I won't tell you what it is. He's very much like, he hasn't changed much. Yes, I could tell you, but I'm not going to. It's, all right. And Jeffrey says, nor will I, since I also know what it is. This is great dialogue so far. Donald. We have certain things in common, Jeffrey. Jeffrey, Yes, we do, come to think of it. Donald. Enigmas never age. Have you noticed that? No one's ever noticed that. What F and F are you talking about? Huh? Being poetic. Jeffrey, as a matter of fact, it was clear to me the last time I saw you. Now it's getting lovey in here. Donald, a pal is a wonderful thing. Happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret. Pubic hair Donald. So, that's how it ended. It was sheer genius. All right. So, I mean, the rest of it is kind of like backgrounder on Epstein that we mostly know, and that Trump at once was quoted saying, I've known Jeffrey for 15 years. Terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It's even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. No doubt about it, Jeffrey enjoys his social life, and I enjoy rendering it in pen and ink for him on birthday cards. They had a falling out. They described the falling out differently. This one omits the towel girls and the Mar-a-Lago club members whose daughters were harassed by Epstein and Maxwell, and then goes to the breakup between the two of them. There's more, of course, and I don't know, whether I'm going to return to it or not. I'll scan it over the break to see if there's anything that I didn't get to that I think is important at this stage of the game. But generally speaking, I think we all know, pretty much what we're dealing with here. So, okay, it was very strange to read, and it did remind me that years and years ago, I guess really during his first campaign, for all of those who have forgotten, and I guess Jeffrey Epstein occupies all this space now, do long-time listeners remember the story of Stewie Rah-Rah, the number one king of all fun, who lived with him in Trump Tower? Quite a figure.
Hi, I'm Scott Anderson, the guy that writes the daily summary for this show, Kagro in the Morning. Thank you to everyone that supports this show. Many of you send donations through PayPal, Patreon, Square Cash, Radio Public, and so on. Some of you write your own essays and send them in, or read articles with your own commentary. We appreciate it. Now, some of you are listening to this and thinking, I'd like to help, but isn't there something I could do that wouldn't require money or effort? Why, yes, there is. You can just like us. On Daily Kos, they call it the recommend button. YouTube has a thumbs up. There are hearts and likes and love buttons. Tap our love button. Tap our love button every day. Share our shows and summaries on Facebook and Twitter, YouTube and iTunes, Stitcher and Amazon. Most of these places allow you to write a review, so a sentence or two would be great. Recommend us to social media, or tell your friends to listen to the show. You aren't just helping us, you're helping them find their new favorite thing to listen to. You could change the world. So thank you in advance from me and everybody else in the world.
All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. I guess the relevant addition to the storyline from yesterday is, I don't know if this is updated information or they added this afterwards. I thought this happened post-publication, but let's see. Trump has said, oh no, this is still pre-publication. The president, let's see. This is really about what information ought to be released from the Epstein files. So let's see. In June of last year, Trump was asked in a Fox News interview whether he would release the Epstein case files. Everybody's like, well, he campaigned on it. And it's not necessarily so much that he campaigned on it as he allowed all of his surrogates to campaign on it. But he'll point to this as his campaign promise. He was asked whether he would release the Epstein case files. The president, the Republican presidential candidate at that point, initially responded, yeah, I would. But he also expressed some reservations. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there, because it's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world. But I think I would. Sure. Soon after that she was confirmed as Attorney General, Bondi said she was preparing to release the Epstein files. We all know all about that. And yada, yada. And it's on my desk. And this is funny. The piece is illustrated with what they described as the release of phase 1 of the documents, but remember that the material contained few new revelations, drawing criticism from right-wing influencers. And what do we mean by criticism from them? It is illustrated with the photo of the various right-wing influencers that they brought in to the White House for a big meeting and gave them the binders with the Department of Justice logo on them, saying, this is phase 1 of the Epstein files, and he was giving it to the right-wing influencers who had spent the time campaigning for Trump and saying, one of the reasons we need to support him is he's going to release the Epstein files, and we're going to nail, they thought, the Clintons and all the Democrats who are on the client list. Anyway, they handed this thing to them, and it's a Hierachik, and a couple of other lunatics, most of whom I don't recognize. But I understand that, I can't remember which of the other loonies is in this picture, and I don't recognize any of them. They're all weird, but Hierachik, who's supposed to be such a brilliant operator, went in for this thing. And every one of these people posing with this binder that we now know was full of nothing, was played for a chump. You thought that the binders were the props, but in fact, you were the props in these photos. And I find that somewhat interesting. Anyway, they go on to say, blah, 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 we'll totally be transparent, and then they're not. And anyway, the update on this, and it's not in this article, is that Trump now says, and this was well tailored, and he must have been coached in this one, as he is in most things, I'm sure. He says, we will release the grand jury transcripts, whatever grand jury information there is on this investigation, subject to its approval by a judge, whatever a judge thinks is appropriate, which I guess is supposed to be like a nod to the idea that, remember, we're busy attacking Democrats for their interest in seeing the Epstein files published by saying what they really want is to publicly disseminate the video seized from Jeffrey Epstein's homes, which amounts to child pornography. And of course, no, there's a huge difference between release all the documents and release the client list and release pornographic videos. We know how to say that if we need to. We won't be saying it, but, there's different words involved here. But that's the spin they're trying to put on it. So here's Trump saying, we'll release whatever's appropriate. He has hedged. He hedged last year saying, there are some things you don't want to release. But if a judge thinks it's appropriate, we'll go ahead and do that. But he specifically said grand jury information, and it's almost never approved to release grand jury transcripts. There's no judge gonna approve the release of that. And then he can, of course, point to these Biden judges who were appointed. It's terrible. It's horrible. I wanted to release it, but these Biden judges are protecting the Democrats and they won't release it. I guess that's the play here. So, here we are. Based on, this is his Truth Social post. Based on the ridiculous amount of publicity given to Jeffrey Epstein, I have asked Attorney General Pam Bondi to produce any and all pertinent grand jury testimony, subject to court approval. This scam, perpetuated by the Democrats, should end right now. And, of course, no judge is going to release the grand jury testimony, and then he'll point to that and say it's the judge who's a Democrat who's the corrupt guy in all of this. So that's where we are with the Epstein thing. I don't know if there's any more hanging around in Instapaper on that subject, but whatever. I mean, I think we've kind of covered it. Okay, let's see. There's plenty of other things, and it's Friday, and there's some things we got to get to here. First, we'll make this one first. What do we say about this? Steven Colbert. That's it. You know the story already. Steven Colbert's Late Show is being canceled by CBS. If you haven't heard, oh no. And it's a good show. And why are they doing that? It's a top-rated late-night TV show. Well, it is by far, and it's profitable, presumably for that reason, for CBS. CBS is saying, this was a financial decision, nothing else. But CBS is also in the middle of an acquisition merger, being bought up by a Trump sympathetic billionaire family. The billionaire dad is buying it and giving his, I guess now by now also billionaire son control of it. I want you to be the president of CBS. Thanks, Dad. Have a happy birthday. Don't rape anybody. Okay, sure. Well, anyway, so it's being transitioned into conservative hands. They want the merger to go through. It might require some government approval like the other mergers. Who knows? Anyway, so the basic speculation here is conservative people buying up CBS, and they want to get rid of the late night host who makes jokes about Donald Trump as a gift, I guess, to Donald Trump. So, because there's no chance it's really a financial decision, it's the top-rated show. The Atlantic has a full examination of that claim. Is Colbert's ouster really just a financial decision? It sounds interesting. It's in the Atlantic. Smart people are supposed to think, I need to read this to be informed. But I think that it's not a financial decision. And you know what kind of decision it is. And I hope it backfires. I mean, it's a nice perch, CBS late show, etc. But I mean, Steven Colbert is as famous as he's ever going to get for this show. Not that I don't think that there's more, fame and fortune. He could have gone on another 25 years. But these days, multiple media platforms available, and even in the television realm, multiple platforms available. I assume he can pretty much write his own ticket at this point. If Stephen Colbert walks into any other production facility and says, I want to do the same show with a different name, I guess, for your operation, let's do it. He can name his price. They'll pay it. And the show will be on again. And people will be making fun of Donald Trump all over again. Presumably, he's also possibly rich enough to create his own platform to do it too, in case he thinks that if he signs on the dotted line with, say, Netflix, which I'm sure would be lucrative, that Netflix might try to rein him in or cut him off at some point if they're threatened by Trump. Maybe he just wants to do this individually somehow and, with his own production company and whatever. I have no advice for the guy on that front, except that you should be hiring me to write jokes remotely via social media for you and just sending checks. That would be my top advice. It's probably not great advice, but he's a very generous and giving guy. He might want to do that for me. How about that? Thanks, Stephen. Okay, I appreciate it. What else? The other big news of the day is Donald Trump is dying of cankles. I think everybody knows what the reference is there, too. We didn't mention this the other day, although I think we've mentioned it in the past. He has kept showing up in public in places with oddly placed bruises on the back of his hand, which, I mean, I guess he should have explained it by saying, I was punching the walls in frustration and I crushed the whole thing. They're going to have to rebuild parts of the White House. I'm so strong. Or I was backhand slapping Melania or something like that. That would be big among his base. But instead, everybody else, he wasn't mentioning it, and everybody was like, well, that's where you get bruised if you're older and bruise easily when they put an IV line in your, in the back of your hand. So, that's probably right. And okay, no one knows exactly why he would be doing. He's an older guy. There's going to be any number of reasons why he might be getting IVs frequently enough for this bruise to keep showing up. Anyway, he's adopted a new tactic, which I guess drew new scrutiny. He is dressing up his hand in outrageous drag makeup. I'm just, that's the way I would spin it. He's putting cover up on the bruise, and you've seen the way he applies his face makeup. Well, this is pretty much the same thing for the hand. He does nothing in the way of blending or matching to his skin tone or anything like that. And granted, you have to zoom in on photos in order to do that. But, I mean, he's like now, as president, the most photographed person on the planet. So it's going to show up. So he did a terrible job covering it up, and everybody's now talking about it even more. Sure, he had bruises before, but now he's being vain about it. And he's gotten into a routine of hiding it because he's so transparent, what's going on. And then the other, I guess, I don't know, the same photographer who focused on the hand, he was in an event somewhere where he was seated, and you know how he sits, like he's on the toilet, wherever he is, and so squatting forward, and his pants ride up, and you could see his ankles are enormously swollen, which, could have any number of causes. Not any number, but, there are a couple of choices. And I guess it was so obvious that he's now had to answer for it, or had the White House answer for it, that he's got some condition, and somebody put it in my email here, one of the various publications that email me constantly so that we could read it to you, but did I put it aside? No. Anyway, I think you've probably heard it before, but what was it? Insufficient venous chronic. If Greg were here today, he could tell you a little bit about it, I guess. It's a circulatory issue. It may be indicative of something else as well. I mean, people were speculating on some kind of edema or whatever. Let's see. I've got the hills right up. Trump undergoes medical exam for swelling in legs and hand bruising. That's what everybody was spotting in the pictures. But I mean, when I say his legs were swollen, I mean, I think I said, this is what they zoomed in on this picture of the pants riding up, and the ankles are just huge and stuffed into these shoes, which are straining to contain the feet, which are also swollen, I guess. And it just looks like sausage stuffed into these socks. I think I had said I ordered like 2 shoefuls of Trumpwurst, please. These just look like, giant salamis stuffed into his shoes. And, I guess we were all a little bit surprised that Caroline Leavitt didn't just deny the whole thing. Somebody sent me something clever. Like, she should have said, he wears helium-filled socks. And you know that. How dare you ask such a question like that? What? But anyway, he's undergone a medical exam for this. That means we can maybe skim this and get a look at the condition. Oh, yes, right here we are. The exam found Trump, 79, has chronic venous insufficiency. Okay, the condition happens when an individual's leg veins struggle to pump blood back to the heart, causing blood to pool, according to the Cleveland Clinic and probably every other clinic. Leavitt said there was no evidence of deep vein thrombosis, a type of blood clot or arterial disease that can include blockages and whatever. And once they're going to, start in on their spin, they're never going to admit to that anyway. This was also interesting. At one point, the bruising on the back of the hand was brought up, and Trump's doctor says, oh, those bruises are consistent with minor soft tissue damage, yes, from frequent handshaking. It's not, but that was the excuse they were going with. And so now, don't worry about it. He's just swelling up, and it has nothing to do with his heart or whatever. But those are some big ass cankles, is all I can tell you. And I've nicknamed them President and Vance. And I think you know why. That's what they indicate. Not a day we should be looking forward to, except for, the presidency of J.D. Vance, but for what must precede it. And, there'll be a brief celebration. And then we'll move on into watching the wackadoodle, introvert, weirdo, couch effer try to run the cult of personality previously operated by Donald Trump. So whatever, good luck to him. And I know J.D. Vance is, I'm sure, telling Trump what you need for this is like sodium and lots of it. And he's probably right. So the cheeseburger of destiny is closer than ever before, I guess. All right. So, that's what everybody's chatting about today. And now you're up to speed on most of those big news headlines. I think you probably were anyway, but we wanted to chat about that before heading into the weekend. All right. Update on the thing briefly mentioned the other day and commented upon by Greg. Also briefly, the claim by Donald Trump that he has convinced the makers of Coca-Cola, and Coca-Cola is a weird product and sort of, made more, it's like this diffuse network of bottlers that actually manufacture the stuff. Anyway, Coca-Cola won't confirm Trump's claim that it's switching to cane sugar. You remember that he made that claim the other day. Matt Novak wrote this up for Gizmodo. I just happened to grab their version of it. The soda company released a statement defending high fructose corn syrup, which they probably really shouldn't have bothered doing, but there you have it. Trump announced Wednesday that Coca-Cola would switch. I got it. It's in the bag. Would switch from using high fructose corn syrup to real cane sugar in its drinks, which they do in Mexico. The president made his announcement on Truth Social, but people online were skeptical that Trump was telling the truth. And with good reason. Trump lies constantly. That's good work for Matt Novak over at Gizmodo. An excellent opening paragraph. I have been speaking to Coca-Cola, the person named Coca-Cola, about using real cane sugar, capitalized C, capitalized S, in Coke in the United States, and they've agreed to do so. Trump wrote Wednesday, I'd like to thank all of those in authority at Coca-Cola. This will be a very good move by them. You'll see. It's just better. And they do sell Coca-Cola with real cane sugar in the United States. It's made in Mexico, but they love everywhere. Increasingly, in every supermarket I've been in, there's been the Mexican Coke in bottles on the shelves. Sometimes they stash it away in the Hispanic foods section for whatever reason, rather than in the regular soda aisle. But it's there, so he can say that. See, they've agreed to do so, and then they did it, just like I said. A spokesperson for Coca-Cola acknowledged the president's statement in an email to Gizmodo, but didn't exactly confirm Trump's claims, instead using the kind language you deploy when you're trying not to contradict the most powerful man in the world, but have no intention of completely revamping your product line. Matt Novak's really on it here. We appreciate President Trump's enthusiasm. Ooh, that gives us a chance to use our
enthusiasm.
That's right, for our iconic Coca-Cola brand. We love that he has a Diet Coke buzzer on his desk. More details on new innovative offerings within our Coca-Cola product range will be shared soon, a Coca-Cola spokesperson said in a statement. Coca-Cola also defended the use of high fructose corn syrup in a tweet on Wednesday on X. The name sounds complex, but high fructose corn syrup, HFCS, this is too much already, which we use to sweeten some of our beverages, is actually just a sweetener made from corn. It's safe. It has about the same number of calories per serving as table sugar and is metabolized in a similar way by your body, the company wrote. The use of high fructose corn syrup is controversial, though the FDA has previously said it found no evidence that it's more dangerous than cane sugar. Coca-Cola noted that other organizations have asserted this as well, even if the consumption of sugary drinks in any form can lead to a host of serious health problems, like probably chronic venous insufficiency, maybe, I don't know. The American Medical Association has confirmed that HFCS is no more likely to contribute to obesity than table sugar or other full-calorie sweeteners. Okay, fine. The defense is there. Why would Trump declare that Coke was changing its product if that wasn't the case? There are, of course, a few possibilities. The Blue Jay outside has one idea about it. One is that Trump just enjoys lying and feeling powerful. Thank you, Matt. You're right. And Trump knows that the so-called Make America Healthy Again movement is a newly important part of his base since he brought on RFK Jr. as the Secretary of Health and Human Services. Trump often tries to will his own version of reality into existence by simply declaring things through posts on Truth Social. Trump frequently tries this tactic with trade deals, for instance. Yes, Matt does know what's going on in the world. Excellent. President Trump also knows that his right-wing media will just parrot his declarations as fact, as Fox News did when its X account proclaimed Trump, quote, celebrates a new win for the Maha movement and insisted Coca-Cola announces it's switching from artificial flavoring to real cane sugar. Again, Coke announced no such thing. It was just Trump. But And I guess the parallel there to the Epstein story is there were outlets out there saying Trump orders the release of the Epstein information, hoping that that would mean, all right, now the mob can stand down, except he didn't order it and there won't be any more information. And I don't know how long it's going to take the right-wing influencers to realize they've been played again if they don't know off the bat. But some people believe it may be part of a coordinated plan, the Coca-Cola thing, to distract the public from the Jeffrey Epstein scandal, except we've just connected the two, so that's, unlikely. Not because of the connection between the two, but because just people are boiling mad over this thing now, and they don't like giving up being boiling mad. Epstein, well, I'm not going to read the rest of this part here, but let's see. Trump has failed to deliver the information, I guess, for his base, even claiming that anyone who still cared about Epstein was involved in a hoax and calling them his past supporters. Democrats have pounced on the controversy, suggesting that Trump's announcement about Coke was just a new way to distract his followers. California, that's the accusation about everything. As a matter of fact, I think people were mad online at Nancy Pelosi just the other day, meaning yesterday, for saying that the Epstein thing was a distraction, and everybody got mad. Like, why can't you be handed a victory and just use it? They was very upset about it. Now, I don't know whether Nancy Pelosi is the person you ought to be looking to for, information about what the Democrats will do with the Epstein thing anymore. She doesn't drive that, but yeah, it is odd to see people falling back on that. But by the way, there's a quick fix for that. She was saying we ought to be focusing on kitchen table issues, but I think you can patch that just by saying, well, Jeffrey Epstein and probably Donald Trump probably raped some people on a kitchen table. Is that enough for you? Okay, now it's a kitchen table issue. Or, you could just use a slip of the tongue there too, right? And just say, Donald Trump is a disgusting, perverted old kitchen table. I mean, man, I don't know why I said that, but I did work the kitchen table thing in there, and now it's a valid pronouncement. Anyway, let's see. California Governor Gavin Newsom wrote a joking response to Trump's post on Wednesday. Oh, thank God. I've totally forgotten about the Epstein files now. Cute. The other option, Trump is just losing his mind and doesn't know what he's saying. That's worth mentioning. Support for that theory came this week when Trump told a bizarre story. Oh, this works in a lot of good stuff. Good roundup, Matt. Matt, call the show. In fact, do the second hour of the show. That would be helpful. Support for that theory came this week when Trump told a bizarre story about his uncle, the late John Trump, who was a professor at MIT. Ready for this one? The president insisted that his uncle had taught Ted Kaczynski, better known as the Unabomber, and that he had had discussions about this before John Trump died in 1985. Couple of problems with that one, but the first one is the public didn't know about the Unabomber's identity until he was arrested in 1996. So John Trump is dead 10 years before anybody in the public, except Ted Kaczynski, knows that Ted Kaczynski is the Unabomber. And I'm sure Uncle John was very smart, but if he knew that and covered it up, then he was complicit in Kaczynski's murders. Is that what we're saying? It is not what we're saying. It means that smart Uncle John never told me anything about Ted Kaczynski. Problem number two, the claim, of course, is that Uncle John taught Kaczynski when he was at MIT, and the thing is that he never went to MIT. So, again, kind of problematic. And there are some interesting theories about that too, but let me continue I'll finish up. Matt says just one more thing. Sometimes it's really hard to tell when Trump is intentionally lying. It's entirely possible that the 79-year-old's brain is just melting. I mean, that's where it is. Gizmodo should be your news source, ladies and gentlemen, or at least Matt Novak. Anyway, this was good. This was well done. Somewhere, and I'm going to have to scroll again for it too. I'm too active on the social media here, but somebody floated this interesting theory that he was conflating, because he had Jeffrey Epstein on the mind, he conflated this thing because at some point, I don't remember whether it was Trump repeated it or someone had just quoted Jeffrey Epstein as saying, but Epstein used to tell a lie of a story about how he used to, or at least Trump thought that Epstein used to tell the story about how Epstein was a math genius and he took math classes. He was a math classmate of Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber. I don't know why that's supposed to be a good thing. It's very odd. But I guess the both of them are name droppers. That was sort of their MO. So, maybe it makes sense in that way. Let's see. Oh, who wrote this one? I found it. News Eye on Blue Sky here. News Eye, is that a publication? The description here is the profile: a career spent in government affairs and media, now an interested eye on the news. Okay, fine, whatever. We don't know what they're up to exactly, whether this is a professional endeavor or not. But News Eye says, and I guess in reply to what? Let me see if I can open the post and then, all right. So multiple times yesterday, Trump attacked decisions he made himself. That's another thing we forgot to look at. He's looking to fire Jerome Powell as Fed chairman, and you're not supposed to do that. It's supposed to be illegal. He's looking for ways to do it anyway, or riling up the base in support of it, but he's having trouble because they're being distracted by Epstein or whatever. And yeah, he said the other day, right, he's terrible, he's the worst chairman. I was really surprised when he was nominated because of how terrible he is. I knew he was terrible. That was the gist of what he was saying. And then, of course, people said, oh, I remember like it was yesterday, because it kind of was, relatively speaking, when you, Donald Trump, nominated Jerome Powell as Fed chairman. And you said you were honored to do it, too. That's really weird. But, in his mind, oh, no, it was Joe Biden or Obama or somebody. So, like News Eye says here, multiple times yesterday, Trump attacked decisions he himself made because he can't remember his first term. He then told a Unabomber story as his own when it was actually a story Jeffrey Epstein used to tell. Mainstream media remained silent on his debilitating illness. And then he adds, because Trump has Epstein on the mind, he confuses stories he heard from him and his own life, mixing up details, a classic trait of dementia, he says. Trump made up total nonsense about his uncle teaching the Unabomber when actually it was Epstein who used to lie about studying with the Unabomber. So they're both lies here. And here a screen grab, I guess, from Mother Jones, written up by Leland Nally in August 23rd of 2019. An interview with Stuart Pivar, P-I-V-A-R, friend of Epstein's since the 70s. We'll take a break and I'll get back and read you this snippet. Come on, mute button, stop fighting me. Welcome back, everybody, including you, mute button, to the Kagro in the Morning Show. Okay. All right. Well, I wanted to jump to this, back to this News Eye thing. So the theory going here, News Eye thinks, is that he's confusing his Uncle John and Epstein because Epstein is on his mind lately. And that Epstein used to tell a lie about this. According to one Stuart Pivar, P-I-V-A-R, I don't know how he pronounces that, a friend of Epstein since the 70s. No word on whether or not he had a birthday card in that bound volume, and if so, what it said. But Mother Jones reported this back in 2019, and it's an interview, and here's a snippet of it. And it goes like this. I guess Stuart is saying he knew plenty about how to make money. Okay, great. Question to Stuart here. What were some of his passions in science? What did he talk to you about in the realm of science? Okay. So the answer, Jeffrey, how to put this? Jeffrey came into the concept of thought and science, and all with no knowledge whatsoever about anything, like most billionaires. I mean, that's just a billionaire thing. I guess we could go off on that tangent again, too. And I'll make a note about where I'm going with that to myself. All right. So how to put this? Jeffrey came into the concept of thought and science, like as concepts themselves, and all with no knowledge whatsoever about anything. He really didn't know a goddamn thing. I don't even believe that he taught math. I can't. Oh, Jeffrey once told me that he studied math with the Unabomber. Did you know that? Really? Yeah, Jeffrey told me that he studied math at UCLA with the Unabomber, who was a math teacher. Now, yeah, the Unabomber, Kaczynski was a mathematician of some kind, right? So it would have been higher math, and I don't know, maybe, I guess Epstein claimed to be some kind of a math savant, and I guess this was supposed to bolster his claim. I don't know why people said, why are you not working in math now? But I guess finance, enough people were like, finance, money, counting, math, same thing. Who knows? Anyway, so that was his story. And here's a link to the actual piece in Mother Jones, I guess, here. Newseye continues to say, here's the interview with Epstein's friend Stuart Pivar, in which he says, Epstein claimed that he studied math with the Unabomber. Epstein was lying. Yesterday, Trump took Epstein's story, apparently thinking it was his own story, mixed up some details, and included his uncle in it, dementia. I mean, I guess so. And by the way, people say it was a very interesting interview, and maybe you want to look at it. I can include a link if you like, if you want to go look. This intriguing title, Jeffrey Epstein, My Very, Very Sick Pal. A very weird interview with Stuart Pivar about Epstein, his science parties, his pathology, and the industrial scale of it all. That would be interesting to read in light of where I thought, the tangent I thought we could have gone on here. But I do want to add one more thing about this. I want to throw out the possibility that Trump's weird scrambled brain also mixed up Good Will Hunting into all this. Anybody else had this thought? Because there's a scene in Good Will Hunting where Robin Williams and his pal, was that Skarsgård? I guess so, right? Who's in the film with it. Anyway, they were roommates at MIT, right? Here we go. So there's MIT, and they have a conversation when they're eating lunch in the bar that leads to asking the bartender if he knows who Ted Kaczynski is, right? Because they're talking about, you've seen the movie, you've seen this, but they're pushing Matt Damon's Will Hunting character, who's a math savant, to get into this higher mathematics stuff, and Robin Williams' character is worried that if you push him too hard, he's got psychological damage. Push him too hard, it may break him, like, happened with Ted Kaczynski. Brilliant mathematician, and something broke in him, right? So anyway, it says there's mention of MIT and Ted Kaczynski and math and brilliant people, like all in one there. Plus, Epstein used to tell this story. Plus, Trump loves to tell stories about Uncle John. He's got a connection to MIT. And I think maybe that had something to do with it, too. I mean, that's a theory. Once you're talking about brain mush, I don't know how you test that one. Because Trump will also tell you, I never saw that movie, because people who were in that movie have criticized him. So I never saw it. I don't like them. They're no good. They're Hollywood phonies. So it might be interesting to read this article anyway. Did I put aside? I think I did. I kind of have to go back and scan through Instapaper. A little more difficult to scan than Pocket was, I think. I liked the tiles of Pocket versus this list in Instapaper, but it's manageable. But somewhere there was, and I feel like I might have put it aside for discussion there. Yeah, here we go. And I saw people just sort of summarizing what happened here on social media, which is how I got intrigued. But another Gizmodo piece. Ooh, is it going to be? It's Matt Novak. We're in luck. Okay, open it up in the browser and we'll read it. Good day for Matt Novak. Am I following Matt Novak on Blue Sky? Is that how come I keep still finding his articles? I might not even know. Anyway, there was this clip that was circulating the other day from this, which lots of people commented on, and it involves Travis Kalanick, who was the Uber guy, but basically examining billionaire brain syndrome, right? He's got it. Zuckerberg's got it. A lot of Elon Musk has got it, wherein if you make $1 billion or whatever, enough money on one idea, one good idea, you may have stolen the idea. You might have lucked out on the idea. The idea might be a bad one, but you convince other people that it's good enough that they give you enough money that you become a billionaire, even though you never make any money with it, whatever it is. When you make that kind of money, there's plenty of theories circulating in the world that basically say you can only make this kind of money if you have a particular kind of genius. And if you have a particular kind of genius, that means you are a genius. And if you are a genius, then you know everything there is to know about everything, or should at least be entitled to comment on everything. And that's, closely related to the idea that we keep commenting on Zuckerberg with, that every one of his ideas is genius. And it's like, Facebook, okay, it was dumb, but it worked. Fine. Okay, that's fine. Now, some people say that it wasn't even your idea and you stole that, but whatever. I can't sort that one out, and I don't really want to help the Winklevoss weirdos either. They already think they're geniuses anyhow. No difference made there. But look, Facebook has made him a billionaire, right? So that means everybody wants weirdo nerd glasses with cameras in them. No, not really. It's an idea. Fine. You got billions of dollars to explore it. Yeah. That doesn't mean it's going to be a good idea or that people are going to want it. And certainly not, the idea of, well, if I wear it, then everybody will wear it. No, you're a nerd. No one wants to do what you do. Everyone wants your money. That's it. And all right, so that, and like the idea that we need a meta universe. I'm going to change the name of this company to Meta, and it will have a meta universe. What's a meta universe? A meta universe is where we pay $50 billion to come up with the technology that allows everybody to turn their photographs of themselves into a cartoon clown version of themselves and walk around in a fake world that looks like a fake rendering of a real world. And everyone will prefer to interact that way because I saw Ready Player One and people interacted in the virtual world that way and something. And so therefore I'm going to do it. Okay. I mean, you can waste your money, but that doesn't mean anybody's going to want to do it. Not because Facebook, people just wanted to share pictures and funny stories with one another. Fine. They didn't want glasses. They didn't want cartoons of themselves. Nothing. But, this is just billionaire brain. We know Elon Musk, right? He made money with the car thing. I'm going to have rockets and tunnels and brain chips. No, you're not. Okay. Well, there's another billionaire who also thinks he knows it all, who isn't Jeffrey Epstein, but who also clearly had the same problem. So let's read about this because I think it's relevant. Because I'm no billionaire, but I clearly think I'm a genius. Billionaires convince themselves AI chatbots are close to making new scientific discoveries. A very specific illness, but billionaires tend to exhibit it. I don't, but if you guys subscribed enough and made me a billionaire, I might. And it would be a fun experiment to try to do that. So I encourage you to go ahead and do that. And by the way, if you're ever out there evangelizing about the show, and send people to the Patreon thing. So so that they'll subscribe and help support the show. But I've been poking around a little bit and I need to upgrade the operation here and basically step things up so that we more professionalize this side of the business because the economy is so uncertain and it would be very easy to create conditions whereby it just becomes impractical to continue the show and more practical to go be a Walmart greeter than to do this. So watch out. So go and evangelize about the show. Send the people to Patreon. I put up I don't even know where I created the original payment subscription tiers. Patreon not easy to use, if you ask me. But I did put up a new tier that basically was the $1 a show tier, essentially. Figuring we do about 22 to 25 shows a month, depending on, how the weekdays fall. And that's quite a lot. And a 2-hour show, if you were going to spend 99 cents to download a song and enjoy that, right, why not 99 cents to download and enjoy the show? But, for the longest time, we kind of kept things on the cheap side because we're populists, I guess, where we said, all right, well, how about if the minimum basic, subscription, you can do it for $1 if you need to and you're willing to fight with the interface. But, I think the first suggestion was $5 a month, which seemed like nice and low and manageable, and it is. But as we've mentioned a couple of times, and we do in all of the ads pitching support for the show, right? If you think about it, $1 a show, that's actually $25 a month, which sounds like a lot, and it is. But it also, on a per show basis, the argument for it. Anyway, I would like for 1 billion of you to sign up so that I can run an experiment. Will my brain melt? like these billionaires. Billionaires this time convinced themselves that AI chatbots are close to making new scientific discoveries. Not only do billionaires believe this, but individual poor schlubs also believe this. And we read a story about that not long ago where people were saying, but it was more along the lines of, I have a psychosis and I am talking to an AI chatbot as though it were a therapist, and it's convincing me that my psychosis is true and correct. Well, this, I think, is just a particular version of that for billionaires. So what's going on here? Matt Novak knows, because I have high praise for Matt Novak. He's doing a good job today. Subheader says, it's a quote, I think, from Travis Kalanick. I'm doing the equivalent of vibe coding, except it's vibe physics, which, of course, is not a thing. Physics, science physics is the kind of thing we're interested in. Vibe physics is science fiction. Now, it'd be interesting to posit it is possible for an actual physicist, perhaps, to do vibe physics in the sense of, I have a new theory. I've jumped from one set of facts to an assumption about what I think those facts bring us to. And now my focus is, can I do the science to establish that my vibes made some sense? Can they be, bolstered with science? But I think Travis Kalanick and the other weirdos are skipping that part or AIing it. And basically, now I got to read the article, but we got to find, are they basically saying, well, I think stars are made of, the moon is made of green cheese. I was going to say stars are made of what? That brings me to green cheese. But the thing they used to say, the moon was made of green cheese. But we've been to the moon. We know it's not green cheese. We quote unquote have been to the moon. Anyway, so now the green cheese lobby, big green cheese, says something up there has got to be made of green cheese. So now it's the stars. Can I prove that? Or, dark matter is made of green cheese. I guess that's what you would be aiming at. And if you ask an AI chatbot, and the AI chatbot says, yes, they're made of green cheese. And also you should glue mozzarella cheese to your pizza and then eat it. I mean, it does say things like that. Does that not stop you from asking questions and then saying, no, that's science now? Guess not. Travis Kalanick is here to tell you that he does it anyway. Generative artificial intelligence, Matt Novak tells us. Generative artificial intelligence tools, like ChatGPT, Gemini, and Grok, the Hitler one, have exploded in popularity as AI becomes mainstream. It shouldn't, but it did. The tools don't have the ability to make new scientific discoveries on their own. I think everybody knows, except billionaires. But billionaires are convinced that AI is on the cusp of doing just that. And I think that's as much PR as anything else. If we don't say to people that it's on the cusp of doing stuff like that, then they'll say, why are we burning lakes in developing it and money? Why are you doing that? And they're like, we don't know. But we do know that we're not going to get our billions of dollars back unless you all believe it and pay a little bit at a time to give us that money back, which is what I'm asking you to do. But I'm giving you a product. Anyway, these tools don't have the ability to do that. Billionaires, though, are convinced that they need to convince you that it can and will. And the latest episode of the All In podcast, whatever that is linked here if you want to go listen, helps explain why these guys think AI is extremely close to revolutionizing scientific knowledge. Travis Kalanick, the founder of Uber, who no longer works at the company. And by the way, it's odd how that's like, he's a success. He founded Uber. Yeah, well, he no longer works there. They fired him. Yeah, but he took a lot of money with him. And that's the difference between a crazy person and an eccentric. Crazy person is poor, eccentric person, rich. Successful person fired by their company from their job, but taking a lot of money with them. Failure person, either still working at that job or fired from that job, but didn't get a big giant chunk of money. There you have it. That's the answer. Okay, so Travis Kalanick, founder of Uber, who no longer works there, appeared on All In. Why? Because he's famous for having a lot of money. And he talks with hosts Jason Calacanis and Chamath, Palahapitiya. Oh boy, sorry about that, Chamath. Pali, P-A-L-I, Hapitiya. Okay, sorry. Well, at any rate, the point is they talk about the future of technology, or they think they're talking about the future of technology. When the topic turned to AI, Kalanick discussed how he uses XAI's Grok, which went haywire last week, praising Adolf Hitler and advocating for a second Holocaust among Jews. So let's have it do the physics. Well, everyone knows the Nazis had brilliant physicists. There is something to that. No, there is not. I'll go down this thread with ChatGPT or Grok, and I'll start to get to the edge of what's known in quantum physics. I don't know if Travis Kalanick has any physics training or not. He may have no idea what's known, what is the edge of what's known in quantum physics, but okay. Not unlike Jeffrey Epstein, where his friend Stuart said he didn't know anything about anything, but he went around saying he did and had science parties to prove it. So he's recounting his experience with the AI things. I'll go down this thread with ChatGPT or Grok, and I'll start get to the edge of what's known in quantum physics. And then I'm doing the equivalent of vibe coding, except it's vibe physics, Kalanick explained, except most people probably don't even know what vibe. I don't know if I know what vibe coding is, but I guess you're just sort of feeling your way towards something. And with coding, you might be able to get around to a workable product eventually. I think it's just like rough draft coding, but they don't do this in physics. Anyway, he says, we're approaching what's known, and I'm trying to poke and see if there's breakthroughs to be had. And I've gotten pretty damn close to some interesting breakthroughs just doing that. The guys on the podcast only briefly addressed Grok's failures without getting into specifics about the Mecha Hitler debate, for instance. And none of that stopped Kalanick from talking like Grok was this revolutionary tool that was so close to making scientific discoveries in revolutionary ways. I pinged Elon on it at some point, and I'm just like, dude, if I'm doing this and I'm a super amateur hour physics enthusiast, like, what about all those PhD students and postdocs that are super legit using this tool? Kalanick said, I mean, that's so foolish sounding. Kalanick suggested that what made this even more incredible was that he was using an earlier version of Grok before Grok 4 was released on Wednesday. So I don't know if that's supposed to exonerate him from the Mecha Hitler thing or not, but okay. Kalanick suggested, that was even more interesting. And this is pre-Grok 4. Now with Grok 4, like, there's a lot of mistakes I was seeing Grok make that then I would correct and we would talk about it. Grok 4 could be this place where the breakthroughs are actually happening. New breakthroughs, Kalanick said. So what he's saying is, I used to do vibe physics with Grok 3, and it was wrong a lot, and I'm an amateur, and I recognized that it was wrong. So it was so wrong that even an amateur would recognize it, and I corrected it. And now I think it's Einstein. You were just correcting it, but okay. Anyway, Calacanis asked Kalanick the obvious question of whether Grok was actually on the verge of a scientific breakthrough. Because anyone who actually understands large language models, not me, but I guess these guys do, Matt Novak does, knows that it can't achieve new ways of thinking. I mean, I understand this part of it. It's not designed to do that either. It's supposed to reflect the old ways of thinking, i.e. ones that existed so that they could be fed into the large language model. And all it is really is like I've always understood it as a more sophisticated autocomplete, which, by the way, autocomplete and autocorrect on my phone still shockingly or is convinced of the shockingly prevalent use of the word fir, F-I-R. Like, it constantly thinks I'm talking about pine trees as opposed to the very common word for, F-O-R. And I'm constantly getting, dictated things or mistyped things that it just oh yeah, you said F-I-R. You must be talking about fir trees. I'm just going to leave it there. Which, I mean, there's no statistics about how frequently I or anybody else are like particular coniferous trees that are of great interest to me and I want to talk about. Please take a guess about whether or not I'm using it. Look at the context. It can't even do that, but it can do physics. Anyway, Anyone who understands large language models knows that it can't achieve new ways of thinking. It's just putting together words in the most statistically likely way, forming connections that may sound like a well thought out argument, but are actually not a form of true intelligence as humans would define it. So, is it your perception that the LLMs are actually starting to get to the reasoning level? That they'll come up with a novel concept theory and have that breakthrough? Or that we're kind of reading into it and just trying random stuff at the margins? Calacanis asked, which is the right question to ask, but the wrong person to ask of it. Kalanick said that he hasn't used Grok 4 because he was having technical difficulties accessing it because of how genius he is, suggesting that perhaps a later version of Grok might be capable of such a thing, but he admitted the AI couldn't yet come up with new discoveries. No, it cannot come up with the new idea. These things are so wedded to what is known, and they're so like, even when I come up with a new idea, I have to really, it's like pulling a donkey. What? You see, you're pulling it because it doesn't want to break conventional wisdom. That's what the donkeys are thinking. That's true. Donkeys are by nature conservative beings. It's like really adhering to conventional wisdom. You're pulling it out, and then eventually it goes, well, he says, S word. Oh crap. Okay. I don't want to even like make him sound cool enough to use that one, but you got something, Kalanick said. And what does that even mean? I don't know. Nothing is the answer. Kalanick emphasized that, quote, you have to double and triple check to make sure that you really got something. That's science. It's true. Making clear he understood that AI chatbots just make things up much of the time, but he still seemed convinced that the thing holding back Grok was conventional wisdom rather than the natural limitations of the technology. Okay. The other co-host, whose name I kept messing up, Palihapitiya, went a step further than Kalanick, insisting that synthetic data could train new AI models. When these models are fully divorced from having to learn on the known world and instead can just learn synthetically, what? Then everything gets flipped upside down to what is the best hypothesis you have or what is the best question. You could just give it some problem and it would just figure it out, said Palihapitiya. That sounds dumb. Musk revealed a similar line of thinking recently, so I know it's dumb, when he suggested general artificial intelligence was close because he had asked Grok about materials science that are not in any books or on the internet. No. The idea, of course, is that Musk had hit the limits of known science rather than that the limit of his scientific understanding was what he had reached here. The billionaire really seems convinced that Grok was working on something new. And here's the embedded tweet from this. Let's see. It begins with a quote tweet of Tim Sweeney, who writes, Grok 4 feels like artificial general intelligence to me. It is clearly not just constructing statistically likely connections, but it is drawing fairly deep insights on problems it hasn't seen before in ways I haven't seen elsewhere. Here's an example. He sends a link. Elon says, that was how I felt when asking Grok 4 questions about materials science that are not in any books or on the internet. But then again, if you ask Grok 4 or any other in the intelligence or artificial intelligence machines to help you write a legal brief, it will use citations that are not in any books or on the internet. And we view that correctly as an error or lying or sanctionable. But, there's nothing to stop an idiot from saying this is new science until they try to take it into a courtroom. Anyway, Matt continues. These guys are hyping up the idea of general artificial intelligence, or AGI. Why not GAI, but AGI? I don't know. Which doesn't even have an exact definition, but it's far from the only term getting tossed around right now. AI folks also drop words like superintelligence, without defining what that means, but it sure keeps the investors intrigued. These AI chatbots are pulling off a magic trick. They can often seem like they're thinking, quote-unquote thinking, or applying rational thought to a given answer, but they work by spitting out the word that's most likely to be next in a sentence, not by actually applying critical reasoning. There's a reason that people who understand AI are the best are the least excited about using it. That's an interesting way of putting it, too. Apple has gotten a lot of crap, we'll say, once again. I don't know why I don't give up and just say, I don't know. I got to hang up about that. Well, let's overcome it right now. Apple has gotten a lot of shit for not committing, to AI in a more forceful way. Was it worth it? I don't know. Something the all-in guys talked about, but the company understands perhaps better than most that there are limitations to this tech. In fact, Apple released a paper last month that shows how large reasoning models, or LRMs, struggle facing a complete accuracy collapse beyond certain complexities. Hi everybody, it's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and patreon.com, patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon too. Thanks for all your support. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Hey, I gotta stop for just a second. Breaking news. Do I have a breaking news sound thing? I really don't. Hey, what do I want to use for breaking news? Oh, I got nothing. How about this? No. All right. Well, anyway, here's the breaking news. Holy crap. Something I did today worked. I like minutes after saying to everybody, by the way, I've created this new Patreon tier, and I guess I have to go back and come up with some other tiers here too, but just pitching, I think, common sense thing. $1 a show. Come on, that's not bad. 50 cents an hour, right? That's not so bad. Well, one of our already existing patrons, Laura, has taken this advice and has tested out for all of you the new tier, the $1 a show tier. And normally I don't shout out how much money people are actually giving. I just shout out that you're giving something. And we appreciate every dime of it, I assure you. But thank you for testing the new system. So the new tier works, Laura. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And this is only gonna encourage me. So but I do want to point out, I do look at this from time to time. The general rule holds here. Did you know that this was a general rule, that the idea that a conversion rate of pretty much anything, particularly when we're talking about subscription things or things that encourage people to part with some money, run about 10% of everything. Like basically you say, for the number of people you ask to do something, like to click a button to go see if they'll subscribe, about 10% of people will comply and click the button and go and take a look. And then about 10% of the people who click the button will say, yes, I will contribute. And that's about what we're running, I guess. But anyway, actually, we probably have a little bit higher conversion rate with that. Just because it's such a self-selecting group. How many people have listened to the show? How many people have become aware that the show exists, clicked on it, I don't know how many people I'm turning away just by having them click on the button and then YouTube tells them it's 2 hours long and they run away. That might not be the wisest subscription strategy. But anyway, here's what I've been thinking, right? So I say, well, look, okay, $1 a show. Like that's nothing, but it also, it does add up. That's true. Not everybody can do that. I understand that. That's and I was just trying to be humble about the thing. Like you can't really ask everybody for $25 a month, even though, lots of people who, say I have limited means will say, they'll easily spend $25 a month on coffee or something like that. So some people will say, you're right. That's foolish. Why am I value this more than coffee. I value this more than a dumb app that plays a game, whatever. Let's go ahead and invest in what we care about. Thank you. That's the idea, right? That's the reasoning part of it. I'm smarter than Grok now all of a sudden. Anyway, but I also see the statistics of the show, and I know that between Libsyn downloads, Patreon downloads, which again, I still don't really entirely understand whether, because there's free membership somehow available on, even through Patreon. So when I look at the statistics, it tells me how many paid members I have and how many total members I have. So there's some unpaid members. Can you, I don't know why you would be an unpaid member if you couldn't download the show there, or maybe you were just trying to boost our numbers, which I totally appreciate and helps with the algorithmic stuff. And that reminds me, just the other day, I noticed that Larry Harris has subscribed to us on YouTube, and I should boost and thank people for doing that just as much as I do for joining the show as patrons. I have asked you to do this. This helps us grow the show, and so I appreciate it when they do that. Okay, so thanks, Larry, for listening to me, not listening to the show, listening to what I told you to do. And subscribe on YouTube. That should boost us. Anyway, the point is between YouTube and Libsyn and Patreon and, any number of other places where you can download the show, there's like a good 1,000 or so downloads of the show happening daily, each episode, 1,000 plus. So that seems like a lot for any one person, I'm just doubting that it's 10 people downloading the show 100 times. Why? Why would you? You don't need to download it more than once, right? 1,000 people doing that. And if everybody were to say it is worth $1,000, well, if it was worth $1,000 to you, fantastic. That would be even better. I need more billionaires listening to the show. That I have to work on. But if 1,000 people were, if it was a vending machine and you had to put $1 in there, that'd be pretty amazing. $1,000 a show. What? What could we be doing with that? First of all, we could be paying Scott lots of money. We could be paying production staff here lots of money. We could be not worrying so much about eating cat food at some point in the near future or quitting the show to go be a Walmart greeter. That kind of thing, right? There would be a huge operation comparatively, right? And it's not beyond reason, because maybe we all exaggerate what's happening on the right wing, but those guys are getting big money and it's coming from one source. True. We have the opposite model here on the left side of the spectrum, and there's just no way you're going to get everybody who listens to do that. But if there were more, like the fact is that I guess 90% of the people doing these downloads, and who knows, maybe they're bots. I don't know why a bot would download this show, but I don't know why a bot would do anything. But if 90% of the people who are listening to the show are hearing me say this and saying, meh, I'm going to keep downloading it, but it's worth nothing, like literally nothing to me, then it can't go on forever. So, as much as the thing that worries me about doing these pitches is that every once in a while you do this, and it's great that it moves people to be more supportive. But then I think, well, these are sometimes very often the people who've already been being supportive, and I don't mean for them to feel bad about it. I mean, go out and find people who are listening to the show and not supporting it at all, and you give them what for, and then they'll sign up. And now that there's this tier here where they can sign up for $1 a show, which is a very, a small amount of money per show, right? Then maybe they'll go and they'll join up. Like Laura already, I had to message her in the middle of the break, like, oh my God, this thing worked. I can't believe it. And she says, yeah, it works. Just ask more often. And please don't go be a Walmart greeter. Okay. So, and she's got an idea about a read it later app that is tile based, like Pocket, or raindrop.io. Did I try it? Did I see it? I think I must have seen it when I was searching for apps in the App Store, but I couldn't differentiate it between the rest of them. But now we got a recommendation for it. Okay, I hope you're the CEO of raindrop.io, Laura. Anyway, if not, you should be. So, back to where we were, in the hopes that I don't want to really be a Walmart greeter. We're going to try to avoid that, but, okay. Anything could happen. Back to the AI story about billionaires whose brains are falling out of their heads. We learned, we moved on to this discussion about large reasoning models, who apparently the real scientists who work on AI know that this was a hell of a quote to end on. They face a complete accuracy collapse beyond certain complexities, which is, something you want to keep out of science. The accuracy collapse would be a bad sign for anybody. Worse still for science. It's just not going to produce anything for you. Apple's paper won't dampen the hype, of course, because, the tech hype works on bubbles. It just does. It has anyway, up to now. The paper won't dampen the hype. Just about every other major tech company is pushing hard into AI agents and investing billions of dollars into data centers. I certainly know that around here in Northern Virginia, the whole place is data centers. Meta CEO, the other brain melty guy we mentioned earlier, Mark Zuckerberg, announced Monday that his company was building an enormous new data center to work on superintelligence, which is super great, just like his super glasses, and everybody wants it, and it'll totally work. Meta Superintelligence Labs will have industry-leading levels of compute. Industry-leading levels of compute. And by far the greatest compute per researcher, Zuck wrote. Well, there goes the brain. Fell out. I'm looking forward to working with the top researchers to advance the frontier. Sure. Well, AI generative language model, whatever, couldn't even get the word compute used correctly there. So anyway, I just think this points out a larger trend of these guys just, there's nobody telling them no, because if you tell them no, they'll cut you off and they won't have money. So they just go around saying, yes, you're a genius. And then they do dumb stuff like this. Like you ask, cold fusion, right? They've been after that for however many years. Or for that matter, alchemy. Why don't I just ask Grok, can I turn lead into gold? Yes. And here's how. Okay, I did it. I invented alchemy. Can you do cold fusion for me? Give me the formula for cold fusion. Ketchup, mustard, mozzarella, glue. I did it. Cold fusion. No, you didn't. It didn't work. But, well, it's not that it totally works. It's trying new theories that are beyond human, capacity. That's not it. And just because you came up with Uber, which is taxis, I mean, come on. I thought there was an interesting idea, theoretically, like, okay, there's like unused vehicle capacity out there. People buy a car, it seats 4, they're one person, they're not always driving their car. What if there was some way to turn that into, to use that excess vehicle capacity so that people who needed rides but didn't have cars could get rides using this unused capacity? Except the problem with the unused capacity thing is somebody still needs to be in seat 1 driving it. We haven't overcome that problem. But then they thought, well, maybe we will with self-driving cars. But then they crash, run over people, are impossible, can't be made, are too expensive, get set on fire, whatever. We haven't overcome those problems. But, it was futuristic and weird, and he sold it for $1 bazillion. So he's a genius. And now he's like, I asked Grok, to solve alchemy for me. And it said it did. And nobody just says, you're dumb. But we're here to do that for $1 a show. Okay, there's more that I want to read to you, and it's an Instapaper, and I haven't had a chance to try Raindrop yet, but that's coming soon. I think I'm trying to think if I tugged at all the threads that I was thinking about. I think so. Yes. So, all right, time to maybe, you know what? Here's something I need to give you before the weekend. It's a profile of a new jackass that you'll have to watch out for. And it's possible that he may do something stupid over the weekend because he's involved in what we're all still struggling to come up with an alternative name for. And the best one I've seen so far is to simply use the concentration camp format, the Dade Collier concentration camp in the Everglades, the one that, you know, they have fun nicknames for. But I like the idea of just calling it what it is, and I think I like the hyphenated Dade Collier name because it reminds me of Bergen-Belsen, and you know, some people get uncomfortable with the comparison there, but you don't have to make it. I'm just using a hyphenated name because that's what it is. It was I think at one point, an attempt to create a new airport in the middle of nowhere. Dade Collier, the two counties, adjacent counties that had invested in this flop of an airport. And so now they don't use it as an airport, so they've put up tents with cages in them on the runway. That's the genius innovation. So anyway, the point is there's a weirdo guy behind all of this, driving it the same way Chris Rufo drives all of their weirdness in education. And Greg Sargent is writing this up and did so on Bastille Day just a few days ago. The young gopper, as we say it, behind the unfortunately goofy named alligator, or as I say, ass crack Alcatraz. I don't know why, just makes fun of it. But the Dade Collier concentration camp. Well, the young gopper behind it is the dark future of MAGA. We're always trying to guess at what the dark future of MAGA is. This could be it. And just to raise the alarm, because we haven't talked about this guy, but Greg Sargent is as good as any at spotting this stuff. Sunshine State Attorney General James Uthmeier, and I don't know whether it's just with or without the th sound. I think I heard it once as Uthmeier, but Uthmeier it could be if you read it in the original German. So, Florida Attorney General James Uthmeier, who is the replacement for the replacement of Pam Bondi. Right, Pam Bondi moves on. They had another attorney general elected there, another goofball lady who then got named to take over Marco Rubio's Senate seat, and I forget her name, and you forget that she's a senator, and she too is the, you know, baby fundy brained person you just generally dismiss. But okay, her replacement. They've gone, you know, down the depth chart, but they've hit something here. He's a little bit of a Chris Rufo savant, but he's also, you know, in his 30s or whatever, so we might be around dealing with this guy forever. So, James Uthmeier is the real brains, believe it or not, behind this notorious migrant detention camp in the Everglades. The more barbarities that emerge, the brighter his star will no doubt shine. And that's certainly an important insight from Greg. And he writes this way. The other day, Steven Miller, boo, get a grogger. Everybody knows what that is? Okay, I hope not. If you need me to explain it, well, look it up. Grogger, and it's Grogger, presumably in English. And now you'll know why I made that crazy sound. Anyway, the other day, Steven Miller went on Fox News and offered a plea that got surprisingly little attention given its highly toxic and unnerving implications. Miller urged politicians in GOP-run states to build their own versions of Dade Collier concentration camp, the state-run immigration detention facility that officials just opened in the Florida Everglades. We want every governor of a red state, and if you are watching tonight, pick up the phone, call DHS, work with us to build facilities in your state, Miller said, in a reference to the Department of Homeland Security. Critically, Miller added, such states could then work with the federal government by supplying much-needed detention beds, helping President Trump, quote, get the illegals out. Although they're not out, they're still in, they're just in cages. Anyway, keep all that in mind as we introduce you to one James Uthmeier. Uthmeier, The Attorney General for Florida and a longtime ally of Governor Meatball Ron DeSantis is widely described in the state as the brains behind Dade Collier concentration camp. Peter Schorsch, I guess, Schorsch, which that's interesting. I mean, we'll pronounce that out, Schorsch, but the fact that we're saying it Schorsch reminds me. It's just like, is that just an anglicized Boutros Ghali? What a funny name. It says the same thing over and over again. Well, so does Schorsch, except, whatever. If you pronounce it out loud, I guess it doesn't, but you read it. Anyway, the Peter Schorsch, who has nothing to do with any of Boutros Ghali, we have nothing against the guy. He's the publisher of Florida Politics. I've never read that publication. Maybe we should have something against him, maybe not. I don't know. But he sums up Uthmeier this way. In Uthmeier, DeSantis found his own Stephen Miller. Maybe, because he's already found his own Chris Rufo. It's Chris Rufo. So, okay. Uthmeier is indeed a homegrown Florida version of Miller, only 37 years old. Don't know if he's actually
bald asshole,
but it's a good bet that he is. I don't know whether he has hair or not, but the second part certainly applies. Uthmeier, indeed a homegrown Florida version of Miller, 37 years old. He brings great precociousness to the jailing of migrants. Racism, but because you're 37, it's precociousness. Like Miller, he is obscure and little known relative to the influence he's amassing. Also, like Miller, he is fluent in MAGA's reliance on the spectacle of inhumanity and barbarism. You don't need to invest that much in the perimeter, Uthmeier said of Dade Collier concentration camp, and indeed they have not. In a slick video he recently narrated about the complex, which featured heavy metal guitar riffs right out of combat cosplay video games. People get out, there's not much waiting for them other than alligators and pythons. Nowhere to go, nowhere to hide. I mean, we'll see whether that's the case. Any migrant who dares escape just might get devoured alive by an animal. One animal eating another. Dehumanization is so thrilling. The real world Dade Collier concentration camp is already gaining notoriety for its very real cruelties. After Democratic lawmakers visited over the weekend, they sharply denounced the scenes they'd witnessed of migrants packed into cages under inhumane conditions. Meanwhile, detainees and family members have sounded alarms about worm-infested food and blistering heat. And the Miami Herald reports that an unnervingly large percentage of the detainees lack criminal convictions, that, of course, being the big claim. We're going after the worst of the worst. We're getting all the murderers and the rapists, and they're just not, because it's hard and scary to get those guys, so they just get whoever they can. Even though they're wearing tactical vests and everything and have big guns, they don't seem to use them against anybody they need that stuff for. We need to have this because we're outgunned by the gang thugs. Well, okay, here's the guns, but why aren't you going after any of the gang thugs? Oh, they might shoot back. Anyway, Uthmeier's getting feted on Fox News and other right-wing media for this new experiment in spite of such notorieties, or perhaps because of them. There's good reason to think more red state politicians will seek to create their own versions of Dade Collier concentration camp or get in on this action in other ways, and that more young Republican politicians will see it as a path to MAGA renown and glory. For one thing, the money is now there, buried in, not very deeply, but buried in the big budget bill that Trump recently signed is a little noticed, well, we noticed it, provision that immigration advocates increasingly fear could fund more complexes like this one. It makes $3.5 billion available to eligible states, i.e. those run by Republicans, and their agencies, for numerous immigration-related purposes, including the temporary detention of aliens. When Miller told GOP politicians to follow Uthmeier by collaborating with the federal officials to develop new versions of Dade Collier concentration camp, he was probably talking about this slush fund. Yeah, state officials can try to tap into it for building out such facilities. For Republican states across the country that want to copy the Dade Collier concentration camp model, this bill will give them that money, immigration analyst Austin Kocher tells me. What's more, red state politicians are paying attention. Fox News contacted numerous gubernatorial offices to ask if they intended to take up Miller's invitation. That they do follow up on, huh? The responses were positive, with many eagerly touting plans for detention complexes. While it's unclear if these will resemble Dade Collier, the underlying impulse is clear. Many red states want to expand state-run detention efforts. And again, the money is there. Not because the states raised it or the states support it, but because the federal government's going to steal the money from the rest of us and give it to them. This is a bad development. Dade Collier concentration camp should not be the model for future of migrant detention in much of the United States, and here's why. The facility is funded and operated by the state of Florida, but the state can use it to detain undocumented people under a federal program that allows ICE to authorize local law enforcement to carry out immigration crackdowns. That puts Dade Collier in a gray area. Local law enforcement agencies are using it to carry out Trump's immigration detention agenda, even as ICE does not run the facility. Lauren Brooke Eisen of the Brennan Center, who specializes in criminal justice, points to a toxic combination built into the idea of more versions of this arrangement. ICE detention is subject to federal oversight. But huge influxes of federal money for migrant detention, as in Trump's new bill, could create new incentives for states to ramp up their own detention efforts. Yet, because Dade Collier is a new experiment, she says it's unclear what sort of federal oversight future imitation efforts would receive, even if they get some federal money. What will access to counsel look like for detainees, Eisen says? What will access to family members look like? It's difficult to imagine state-run facilities where conditions and due process are prioritized. Illustrating that point, when a reporter recently asked ICE for comment on what's going on inside Dade Collier concentration camp, ICE said, well, it's not their facility. In other words, the federal government is not responsible for what happens inside those walls, or tents, even as Miller and Trump call on other states to build more of them. Which brings us back to Uthmeier and the future of MAGA. It's easy to see Uthmeier and his Dade Collier becoming a model for other young Republicans seeking a route into MAGA celebrity. Consider his career trajectory. It's fairly conventional establishment Republican stuff. A native of Destin, a small beach city in the deep red Florida panhandle, he earned a law degree from Georgetown and then worked for the Commerce Department in the first Trump administration, and then for the ultra-establishment D.C. law firm Jones Day. Uthmeier has also made appearances at the Conservative Federalist Society, which is as establishment conservative as it gets. He joined DeSantis' first administration as a senior legal advisor, because of how senior he is, and then got appointed as Attorney General when the slot was vacated by the appointment of former AG Ashley Moody, there it is, to now Secretary of State Marco Rubio's Senate seat. All in all, it's in some ways a conventional path to GOP success. In fact, Uthmeier actually has a track record of criticizing Trump in the past on things like COVID-19 and abortion. But J.D. Vance survived such heresies, and now in the party that Trump remade, Uthmeier apparently recognizes that Dade Collier is his big ticket. It's a reminder that in today's GOP, the MAGA and older line Republican establishments are bleeding into one another, and that getting attached to such an idea is a path to national MAGA stardom. He wasn't even elected AG, he was appointed. Keep that in mind. Put another way, in the cutthroat world of the MAGA attention economy, association with things like Dade Collier concentration camp can carry enormous weight. It's hard for people who don't swim in MAGA's rancid information currents to grasp, but when Trump recently toured the facility with DeSantis, it was a huge MAGA propaganda coup for the Florida governor. Yes, he apparently still harbors national ambitions. Indeed, one person who very much noticed this was apparently Uthmeier himself. According to one Florida operative in touch with Uthmeier's staff, there's considerable sensitivity in his inner circle over who is getting credit for Dade Collier concentration camp, with some worrying that Uthmeier isn't reaping enough of it. Uthmeier needn't worry, though. When Trump toured the facility, he said of Uthmeier, "That guy's got a future." In this, the MAGA God King himself gave a big boost to Uthmeier's 2026 electoral bid to keep his appointed AG role, which will be a platform for even higher ambitions. And if more barbarities emerge from Dade Collier, as they surely will, his MAGA future will only get that much brighter. We've reached the end of this one. Thank God we actually fit that one in, and we don't have to leave you to read the rest of it. But take a look, as I did, when I went to look for videos to see if I could find the correct pronunciation of his name. Not that I really should care about that, but I obsess over it anyway, and that's why you listen to the show. But that means I had to listen to a couple of his press conferences, and he doesn't introduce himself. I had to look elsewhere to try to find that out. News reports about people discussing who he is and how he pronounces his name instead. At any rate, it got me to the content of his press conferences, and it is horrific. And he's every bit the Stephen Miller, Chris Rufo, manipulative about everything and looking to ride this to fame when in fact, if he had been an old school Nazi, this would have been somebody summarily executed by the Soviets at the end of the war. Anyway, just saying. So now he's on the list. Watch out for him. And he'll probably do everything he can to boost his profile, which is probably a serious error when it comes to if you worry that you're ever going to face accountability one day, which I guess he just does not. But he's been taught by the best / the worst about not anticipating the future. And all right, one day perhaps he'll pay for it all. Okay, time for us now to hand things over to Justice Putnam for the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. He'll take you all the way into the weekend. And now we've got a little bit of time to read you his description of what he's got for you lined up on the show. MAGA Mike panicked on live television as Trump's plan backfired in his face. Which one? There are any number of them backfiring in his face. Let's check in and find out which one's up. Next up, Louisiana canceled its $3 billion repair of disappearing Gulf coastline that was funded by the 2010 Deepwater Horizon oil spill settlement. What happened to that? Well, you're not getting any of the benefit of that much.
NetworksRadio.com. You have been listening to Kagro in the morning with David Waldman.
There's more. A second neo-Nazi has been charged for an assault in the 2024 Nashville anti-Semitic attack, and the wife of the embattled Louisiana police chief charged in an immigration visa fraud scheme has also been arrested. Lots of Louisiana news there, but also news from around the world. There's always international stuff on the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. We'll see you next week.